Jeff Hunter. I work at UBS. We've been the sponsor for the Global Autism Forum the last 7 years. Several of my clients have children on the spectrum, and they all seem to share the same passion. As Kurt mentioned, he spoke at one of our conferences a few years ago, and then more recently, the president of his California subsidiary spoke this year. And she and I were talking with my client, and she said, yeah, we're really looking to expand in the United States. And I said, oh, where? She said, oh, you've never heard of it. It's called Thanksgiving Point. And I said, oh, in Lehigh. And she said, you know that place? And I said, yeah. And then she said, do you know anyone there? And I said, well, I know the pseudo-mayor of Lehigh, Joel Smith. And if he doesn't know somebody, he'll connect us. And so that's how we all got here today. Thank you, Joel.
I blame it all on Kevin Bacon in 1983. I won't go any further.
We want details.
No.
Pictures of face.
They didn't exist back then. Go ahead, Steph, please.
I'm Stephanie Mackay, not McKay. There's a joke between us. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer with Columbus Community Center. We're a nonprofit organization here in Salt Lake. We started in 1968 serving people with intellectual disabilities, and we have evolved from 8 students in 1968 to serving 622 people, all levels of disabilities. We provide all kinds of services, but our big emphasis is really in employment and independence in the community. About 5 years ago, we're just 1 degree separated for so many reasons. I really became aware that autism, we have a high rate of autism in Utah. I had a lot of parents asking me about services. I met a variety of people who were starting to build on this model that Kurt shared with us tonight, and I realized that we had a whole generation of young adults who were falling off what we call the service cliff. And I became passionate because I think these young adults, if we don't grab them and pull them up to join their non-disabled peers in their 20s, we're going to lose a generation of really remarkable talent. So that's been my commitment, and I'll talk more later.
Hi, I'm Carol Finegan. I'm Chief Information Officer for Franklin Covey, and my interest is in diversity and IT. We've had success with several neurodiverse employees, and we've had 0 success with employees on the autism spectrum. And I was very excited to meet Kurt and understand there is a process and coaching for employers as well as the applicants and the talented people who could fill up our many open IT positions in Utah. So I'm very interested in diversity. I'm a woman working in IT in Utah. I represent diversity. I'm also an East Coast liberal, so even more diversity. So diversity in IT makes us all better. I have a very eclectic team that it's taken me 5 years to build, and I look forward to a future with more diversity and including autistic team members successfully.
My name is Cagney Smullin. I currently work for the University of Utah as an administrative manager. I'm autistic, and I have a young daughter who's also autistic. And I just finished my MPA, and I started working with Optimizing Autism, where we are doing employer trainings. We're starting with Park City as our test site, Park City government. And so we're training employers on how to successfully screen, hire, and manage autistic employees. So I've done a number of HR trainings and designing HR trainings to that effect.
I'm Jaye Olafson, and I think I work for everybody here right now. I'm retired. I come from a software background, having been the COO and president of a small software company. I'm here because I've gotten involved in working at DU since I have 3 years now, with nobody paying me money. So Dr. Davis is here today, and Dr. Builder, that we work on research at DU. I'm very interested in what causes autism, to how do we support autism, to how do we, all these wonderful people we have employed in the community. We need resources, and I will talk more about my grandson who's autistic, and it will give you a little insight into why I'm such a passionate, strong supporter
So the first question I have is for Stephanie. Mickey. Mackay. How cool is it going to be to have a facility that has Auticon headquarters in it, as well as the STEM Action Center? And yes, that's now official, folks.
Not exciting at all. So Columbus has embarked with multiple partners. One, our real estate developer, Troy Hart, here tonight. We are just almost completed the Hub of Opportunity, which is a mixed use, mixed income housing project, and we are going to have, we've started a program called the Next Work Program, and we're going to have 5,700 square feet. We're going to be doing training apartments where people are going to be able to live. It'll be one of the first in the country. It's been a partnership. It's included a lot of people, and we've been working on it for 6 years. It's very exciting because the commercial component of this, we have 156 units. 20% of the people living there will have disabilities. The commercial component will be very much geared now towards training people on the spectrum, having Auticon join us, and we have one other partner, Tammy Getz with the STEM Action Center, and they work with K through 12 on STEM education. So we're going to have a world famous corner there, I'm pretty sure. And it was the most organic experience for all those partners to come together too. So.
Awesome. This is actually something that I think is on opposite sides of the coin, and it was a dialogue that Cagney and I talked about, that I really think that you and Carol could probably have almost an open dialogue here because of what both we do. What are common employer concerns about hiring and managing autistic employees?
So from the research that I did and the work that I've done with different employers, some of the common things that come up is, first they look at accommodations, because that's kind of the first thing that employers tend to go to, and they worry about the cost of accommodations. This is sort of across all people with disabilities, but really in the research that I did, the average cost of an accommodation is like $50. Like, it's not anything to worry about. The other concerns that they have is how to manage someone on the spectrum, and getting the training that they need for their HR managers, because if you don't have that training, often it's not a successful attempt to hire someone who's autistic. There's either not that level of communication that you need, or there's not the level of support that the autistic employee needs for them to feel comfortable and be successful in their job. And so a lot of times having a job coach or something, or someone that can come in and do training, is what's helpful. And then the other one is just understanding how to communicate. I think that's really important. There's that kind of study that came out just recently about the differences between how autistics communicate and how neurotypicals communicate. And that it's not that we're bad at communication or social interactions, it's that we're just on these different wavelengths and figuring out how to kind of meet in the middle so that you can communicate properly.
And I'll just throw in, for our team, the communication was the #1 concern, even during the interview process and having the candidates come in. So you see a resume and it tells you skills and abilities. So you bring a person in, and then because the communication style was so different, I then had to step back for the second interview to talk to my team and say, we're looking at skills, we're looking at test results, we're looking at capabilities. But to people who aren't coached or trained, it's very hard to even get through the interview process. And I know that we made the poor candidates squirm because we weren't trained in how to properly address, even their questions. So just the communication styles were so different. I actually look forward to coaching and coaching our team members and our HR teams in Salt Lake, because it's hard to get them past the resume stage.
So, Stephanie, I understand the studies that you did with Sorensen Impact Fund, that there were roughly 5,700 candidates on the autistic spectrum, whatever the proper terminology is, that could possibly qualify for the type of training that is done by Kurt's team and other teams like that. And we might capture 20 or 30 of them, but are we ever going to run out of people that can help out the tech business?
No, we never will. 2% of our population has autism, so we can just go with that fact. I left a handout on the table. I really do want to briefly talk about the economic impact and the numbers. So when we started down this road 5 years ago, and I was trying to figure out how we're going to put an autism program together, nobody can answer the question for me. How many young adults are out there with autism that could actually work? And nobody, and I'm working with experts, from universities and everybody, and so we worked with the Sorensen Impact Center and got a grant to look at the economic impact of autism, and we would ask ourselves the big question also, why aren't employers looking at this potential workforce? So I do want to point out that there were like 100 zillion spreadsheets behind this infographic, but we finally, I was the happiest, almost happiest day of my life, besides maybe having my children, was that finally we came up with a number, and it's 7,500 young adults in Utah that would fit the criteria to be employable. And you look at an 80% unemployment rate, those 7,500, costs the state $102 million a year, lost wages, taxes, caretakers. We looked at everything, and this came from very rich data sets. If you put a number of those to work, so the unemployment rate's only 15 to 30%, they're putting $121 million back into the community, and compared to their peers who are at a 12% unemployment rate, we're putting 303 back. And so those numbers have really been driving me, helped me with discussions with legislators and donors and researchers, but we just didn't have that data, and so it's an endless supply. And I do want to call out one individual who's on the back, Mason, the life change. He's here tonight. He sits on our board of directors. He came to us as a teenager, participated in our Next Work program, and he's working full-time at Walmart. And a great success story and a great advocate in the community for clients. So there's, again, a lot of data that went into this, but very impactful numbers.
So, Vance, the last numbers that I heard, and just give me a nod or whatever, we're short about 4,700 engineers in Utah.
Yeah, that's probably low, but sure, that's a good number.
Okay, so, I mean, I'm not going to put you on the spot here because you've got a pretty good thumb on this, but if many of the pillars of what are being worked on at Silicon Slopes is diversity and inclusion, this could be a diversity and inclusion that's not even typically on the radar of companies to be able to take care of a problem that's they desperately need to solve, as well as the social part of it. Do you mind expanding?
Amen. Is that enough of an expansion? I mean, you're absolutely right. This is talking about diversity, and diversity and inclusion, especially as we enter the legislative session, is one of the big areas of focus for Silicon Slopes and Silicon Slopes Commons, which is the new entity that came as a result of the Utah Technology Council combining with Silicon Slopes. And so this is a big topic. We don't talk as much about the talent shortage because it's just been there for so long, and it'll continue to be there. So instead, we're focusing on things that really will help solve the talent shortage, like making sure that Utah stays a very attractive place for people to live and for companies to locate themselves, and talent is just part of that equation. But diversity and inclusion is a huge area of focus, and neurodiversity is not at the top of everyone's thinking when we talk about diversity and inclusion. Like you said, it's oftentimes gender diversity, and then maybe we get to sexual orientation and race and ethnicity and some of these other things. So if we could add neurodiversity into the conversation more, I think it would be super refreshing. And I think a lot of the tech companies would be very receptive to this.
Awesome. Pay you $5 later.
Vance Checket's a great guy. So from a numbers standpoint, if I understood this, we have $100 million that goes into supporting these folks, and if we were able to employ them, it would turn it around by 300, which is a net win of a very large amount.
Yes.
Okay. Each of you, if you could kind of address this. In my world, I can help with neurodiverse solutions how, and Jeff, I'll kind of ask you with that, because I know you work on a lot of this, but share it with the rest of the group.
Yeah, so our bank dedicated, made a pledge. Sorry.
Our bank made a pledge that we would hire up to 2% of our workforce with people with disabilities, and so we, both in Europe and here in the United States, started hiring autistic people. They serve two main functions. In Europe, they're doing a lot of programming for us. Here in the United States, it's all risk management and fraud detection. So when you're using your UBS credit card, there's a person with autism who's monitoring those transactions, and they see regular transactions, and then they see one that's out of whack, and then they block your credit card, and you have to call in. But the gentleman who runs that department said they've been the most effective employees he's ever had. At one point, we had offshored that business overseas, and that had horrible communication problems. We reshored it back into Tennessee, hired these individuals a couple of years ago, and so we're actually looking to expand into programming. Every company is an IT company. Everyone needs programming of some sort, web design, any kind of digital presence. And so what Curtis pointed out and what we've experienced at our bank is that the individuals are properly trained, and if the environment is maintained and there's good communication between all parties, it's a win-win.
Repeat the question.
In your position in life, how can you help those that are neurodiverse? I mean, with you, it's a given. All of you, it is. But I mean, if you can kind of share how you can, make that personal journey impact.
Well, the big commitment I've made is threefold. I work for a fabulous organization that keeps reinventing itself about every 10 years to meet the need as these discussions of diversity and disabilities change. So I feel like I have a grounding that I can share with other people, and I can talk to parents who are coming to me now and reassure them that we just keep cycling through solutions, but we keep getting better and better at it. And the other piece that's been really important to me, and we don't think about it in these terms, is I really try to frame it in terms of an economic development issue and not a social services issue, that we have an incredible generation out there that we need to tap into. And I want to make sure that parents understand that there's options, and I really try to hone in on the message to employers that how important that diversity discussion is, and to start thinking only 4% of corporations actually have in their diversity and inclusion policies a specific reference to people with disabilities, and then we have the subset of autism. So I try to stay at the macro level and talk about economic development, human capital, and really the dignity of work. And once we work, we establish an entire life cycle that moves us forward and makes us part of the community. So I keep really pounding away on some of those larger issues.
So I belong to Women Tech Council, the Association of Information Managers here, CIO Council. I attend conferences all over the country, and we are all in the position as IT hirers of robbing Peter to pay Paul. So when we need to hire for a position, I have to plan out 6 months. It literally took us 6 months to a year to build an in-house development team. It took us even longer to find QA professionals. Now we have audit professionals that take even longer to hire, and we're in a position of we're taking from our peers, and to have this rich, diverse pool of people to hire into our organizations is going to make us all better. Plus, we won't have 6 months out to look for employees. And with the proper training and coaching, I think the hurdle is getting IT teams and IT leaders comfortable with hiring in this new group of diverse individuals. We're already working on the women in IT, as Mr. Checkett said, and we're working on other diverse ways to get talent in. The Apprenti program in the state of Utah, which is bringing people from other careers, underserved populations into IT. We're trying everything to fill these jobs. So this is just a wonderful avenue that we can spread out to all the leaders in IT to bring more people into our groups. We're out of people, quite honestly. Among the regular pool, they're not even regular, I'm not regular, but the people we've been hiring, we're just out of people. So this is a wonderful opportunity, I think, for the people to be employed and for us as employers.
So I'm actually fairly new to my diagnosis. I got it about 3 years ago, after I learned what autism was, because my daughter was diagnosed. And so it's been really important to me to learn as much as I can and then share what I've learned and be an advocate in the community, because I think we have so many great advocates, but we don't have that many autistic voices in our community right now that are advocates. And I think it's important that we have those, and then we have a voice in the conversations that are going on and in the trainings that are going on, especially with employers. I think the training that I did and the research that I did, one of the hurdles for employers was that they just didn't have the knowledge, even just about autism in general. And so that's one of the things that I'm trying to work on, is educating people. Because a lot of people that I talk to would never guess that I'm autistic. And I didn't guess either until I really learned what autism was, and then I went, oh. So I think it's just really important for people to see what autism is really like and what autistics are like.
From the cheap seats, and I think it's interrupting his wife.
No,
That's
go ahead,
okay.
Jay, please.
You could have a diatribe back and forth. Go ahead, Jay, please.
Well, yes, my husband Eric is sitting over there, and I told Stephanie this story earlier. I worked in the IT business for 30 years, and I've never sat on a panel. This is the first time ever that I've spoke in public, and I ran a darn good business. But this is how important this is to me. I have 11-year-old nonverbal autistic grandson. He's the sweetest little redhead, and for all of everybody says, he doesn't talk, but he loves, and love helps. So we need all facets. I work with 2 wonderful people at the University of Utah. We work on research, but we need research, and not just research like cancer or anything else, but we need help between the lines to support families. If these beautiful adults, once they get out of the school system, don't get a job, what happens, mom or dad? We make a big impact on all the lives. I have a friend Amy back here, and she's involved. She works for Justice for All, and she does a lot of goodwill for a lot of people. of other people here calling me. I'm going to miss some people, and then Billy, who worked for me for 13 years, and Billy is with diversity for Salesforce right now. And these are the kind of companies we need. And these people have strengths. We're not trying to help somebody who doesn't want to be helped. These people want to be helped. And we've learned a lot, over the years about autism, but we need to do more. And we do need these people. It's not like they don't have skills. They have wonderful skills, and not just in IT. I mean, they can do jobs doing many, 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 many different things. But, even our little guy, people say, oh, I won't do this and that. But if he was here tonight and you had your cell phone on and you put it down, somehow you could figure out how to get David Bowie, and it would be lasting. So I will continue to support innovation, getting jobs, and my husband has been in the tech industry here, Silicon Slopes, the whole thing, working with Vance and different other people, and we are working with Kurt right now, and then we have Wells Fargo. We have a meeting in New York in January, and they want to hire up to 30 people next year. And they're, please help us. How do we train? How do we coach? And being an employer, I can tell you, I can look back and probably 20% of my employees were on the spectrum. And I was known as mom, knocking the door. I don't want to talk to this customer. Okay, well, why don't you sit there quietly? I'll talk to the customer, but write me notes on what I should say because I am not technical. So there are many ways, and there's small things. I mean, we've grown up where, we all have to be ADA compliant, so we can get a wheelchair into the place. But a lot of times, it's not big things. It's like you said, it could be $50. It could be, I don't like the bright light, or I need a bigger screen. Every time these little things, but we're not allowed in today's world in HR to accommodate all of them, because if you do it for one, you do it for all. So we need to break that mold down to reasonableness. So let's classify them all as ADA if we have to work that to get around the system, so we can give them, a $20 set of headphones because they need to be quiet. So I'll just continue awareness, 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 awareness.
So I asked for the mic because first and foremost, I really want to take advantage of the fact that Jaye, you're there and I'm here. And this is really wonderful. But actually, we were talking here about, in our company, we had no plan or any idea what we were doing, but in the rearview mirror, if we look back at the people that were extraordinarily successful, because when Kurt talks about these consultants, they're not just average bears. They're quite exceptional. And so this is not a dollar for dollar trade. Just to be a little commercial for a minute, we pay our programmers historically more or less the same money. But the difference in programming contribution to business, to code, is, I'll say 10x. And it's never spoken about. Everybody knows on a team who's who in the zoo. It is absolutely, and anyways, in this conversation we were just having earlier, Jaye was saying, well, you actually, now looking back, you are the coach. So thank you. That's all, no question.
To finish, because we wanted to have this wrapped up for networking by 8 o'clock. You've mentioned to me that the pilot that you would like to start with here that makes it viable and it works is you need about 25 colleagues. Fidelity's come on board, so we know that we've got 3 to 5 there. But with this multitude of 5,000 tech companies that we have up and down the Wasatch Front, we need to find 4 more. We're talking with the church in the morning, so that goes forward. But you've been out here now.
That makes it 2.
That makes it 2. But the goal is to get 25 colleagues to be able to start with the program sometime in the spring. And to the rest of the community and those that come in contact with them, any employers or any project managers or anything else like that. To be able to make this work, we have to have a critical mass where it can go from 25 to 50 and 100 and everything else. So each of us have some sort of a tie-in to that community and has the ability to help with that. He's totally approachable, I can tell you that, with Kurt, with what's going on here, as well as everybody else that's here. But for you guys to finish up, what would you recommend that we do? And I'll start with Jeff and we'll work down to Jay. What do you think that we can do to obtain those 25 pilot members to be colleagues in motion in about four months?
Yeah, so the most important, as Kurt said, is the job coach. So we've got to find somebody who wants that role. They'll then in turn train the consultants. We're going to, as Joel just said, we're going to need to find 3 to 5 companies who would hire people on the spectrum, say 3 to 5 people, and do it for 1 year. And so really what it is networking. It's getting the word of mouth. Almost everyone, so this is, I think, our 4th trip up. We've had multiple meetings with multiple different people, government, nonprofits, tech companies, and almost to a T, everyone's, I've never heard of anything like this. And so it's really an awareness. Now, it doesn't hurt to have Richard Branson, who can go out and his 16 million fans, followers, but I think in Utah is going to take the people that live here talking about it and networking and then suggesting that person talk to Kurt, and the rest I think will take care of itself.
So everybody knows everybody in Utah, and we all intersect at some point. One of the things that Columbus has done in the last 5 years is we've really convened a lot of stakeholders, from autists to their families to researchers, service delivery, legislators. So we will continue. We have an ad hoc committee that's meeting regularly that is very representative of all of these stakeholders, and we can certainly have those conversations, and we can push those out in many directions. But you'd be surprised how many separate conversations are going on with groups, and so the more that we can collaborate and convene and kind of centralize this conversation, I think it'll be attractive for autists to feel comfortable to come to us to say we want a job, because that's one of the biggest obstacles we've had, is getting people willing to self-disclose and start that process, and it really does take a village to do that.
Well, I think it's taking it back to our individual peer networks and really sharing the information, but not just sharing it, but directing them back to Kurt and to the people who can make the correct connections and make jobs actually happen. I know a lot of peers who are looking to hire people, but my sharing Auticon with them is one step. The next step is connecting them to the people who can actually place individuals. And it sounds like you have a great resource for individuals. And then also the second part I would say is HR professionals. There are a lot of groups of HR professionals who meet. There's SHRM and all these different groups. To get in front of the HR professionals so they can take this back to their organizations and their recruiters who are hiring, and then doubly connect them back in to Kurt's organization. Those are 2 things I personally can do with my network, and some of us could do with our own networks.
I think working with some of the universities in the state that have programs like UVU, University of Utah, we have the Utah Neurodiverse Workforce Program, things like optimizing autism, things like that, that we already have some connections in the community and have some connections with employers that may be able to help them.
I don't think there's much left to be said, but I think we do. Pingree, for example, I think we need to get out, and I would offer up to go talk to Pingree, talk to Utah Autism Academy. Even if they don't have anyone, everybody knows somebody that's there, a friend of a friend of a friend. So I've already reached out to Tricia Mills, Sunny Williams up at Utah Autism Academy, and I have a decent contact through Dr. Davis since his wife is quite involved and works at the Pingree. So I think we need to get also to these schools, as you mentioned, scenic, and make sure that we connect with them and let them know, because I do know that, people move around from time to time. People are teaching at Utah Autism Academy. They've gone on to different jobs. They will know somebody. There's programs down at UVU now to teach people how to work with these kids on the spectrum. So we need to get to these classes and schoolrooms and people and let them know that we're looking for job coaches. And I probably shouldn't say this, but Kurt's also looking for a CEO here.
Oh, you can say that, of course.
I've told him it needs to be a woman, so nothing wrong with the man. But this never happens. There's 4 of us here. But if you do know somebody, not only that has skills, but has an affinity for diversity and specialty, please. You're in the women's group, you're in the men's group, whatever. I say women just because real mothering in this area. But please let us know. I will be a contact. I will leave my contact. I'd be happy to offer up even conversations. I've done many, many interviews in my career, and I would be happy to do that. If somebody doesn't want to be formal, HR has reported to me. So if you know somebody, you don't have Kurt's number, reach out to me. I'll give you my email address, and I'd be happy to help.
How about a big hand for our panel, and then some. And some final words from Kurt.
Just one more comment, Stephanie, because you said the self-disclosure of being on the spectrum. Our experience is that this is a super important point. This is why I wanted to say it again. But it is a super important point. After they have done that, it's such a big relief. And what Auticon really does is we say, wait a moment, don't hide it. We are selling your skills. So go out, self-confidence, say, I am on the spectrum, and this is why I'm particularly strong in this and this and this and this area. This is a game-changing, this is a life-changing thing, and those colleagues of us who have done it, they are proud to be on the spectrum, and this is how it should be, to be honest.